Hello, everyone, and welcome to Chapter 11, which talks about decision making and creativity. And this is a very interesting chapter because it has implications that we can use in our daily lives, in organizations that we work for. So it has wide implications for our entire life. Okay, so every day we face decisions. Where do we eat? What, let's say, school district should we live in? We also face decisions like who should we hire in a specific for a specific position? How can we tell our employees that they're not performing well? What type of strategic decision do we set for our organization? They could also be such menial tasks as, which restaurant do I eat at? So that is why decision making is one of the most important chapters. It just guides our lives. As long as we are making choices, then decision making is there. And we've been constantly being referred to, and by we, I mean humans, as problem solvers. So we have to, even if we don't face decisions, we look for situations where we'll have to face decisions. So if someone has a lot of free time on their hand, hey, how am I going to fill this free time? What kind of hobby do I need to pick? And so forth. So in this chapter, we'll be able to answer a couple of questions. How can we integrate rational and non-rational models of decision making? So different ways in which we make decisions. Is it according to what logic should expect us to make a decision, which is rational, or is it non-rational, which is basically doesn't follow logic? It's second decision, it's very hard to be rational, as we'll see. So what biases get in the way? And we'll talk about different types of biases. We'll also talk about how do I decide to decide. So what are the different decision-making models that exist out there? How can I use decision-making in ethical situations? Talk about group decision-making, because it's not only at the individual level, it's at the group level. And how can we increase creative behavior? So we want to talk about 11.3 part of your chapter. So what is decision-making? As I said at the beginning, as long as you have choices, then there is decision-making. So we look at finding different alternative solutions, and then we pick one that leads to what we think will lead to the outcome I want. So for example, I might face a decision between a variety of different cars. So do I buy a Corolla? Do I buy a Civic? Do I buy something that's more luxurious like a Mini, a BMW? Okay, and if I don't know which one to buy, and I'm hoping that I don't want to break the bank, so I buy something that's affordable. So you might go with a Toyota Corolla or Civic at the end, because a BMW or Mini will kind of put you in a difficult financial situation. So the desired state of affairs is that you want to really be in a secure financial position, and at the same time, have a vehicle to drive to work and other different places. So when making these types of decisions, we can either follow two systems. One is called Fast and one is called Slow by Kahneman. It's a really good book, Thinking Fast and Slow. If you have the time to buy it and read it. One of them relies more, which is the fast one, on intuition. So it requires really little, thinking, and it's something comes automatic. So like driving a car, we don't really think about how we drive a car every time we drive. We don't say, okay, I'm going to put the gear into drive. I'm going to look right and left. These are not effortful. They come just automatic. We look left and right, put it into drive, and just go into our way. If we want to take a left lane, we just look over our shoulders. All of these are kind of automatic. However, some decisions, and this is called the slow system, require a more effortful thinking. So if you are looking for a new house, okay, which school district do I go to? If you are looking for a new job and you got a couple of job offers, which one should I take? So these require a lot of effort, and we typically rely on both of them when we make decisions. Okay, and it's not always good to have effortful decision, because it is very exhausting. And it's not always good to rely on intuition, because sometimes we might not think a decision well enough, and it would lead to bad consequences. So if I'm looking at different cars to buy, I just don't go on a whim, oh, hey, I like a BMW, and just go buy it because it has negative repercussions, for my financial situation. However, when I'm buying toothpaste, we tend to rely on, mental shortcuts. I won't stand in front of every aisle trying to compare the different types of brands in terms of price, in terms of the components. You will just, grab the first, type of toothpaste that you're used to buying every time. So, because that makes your life easier. Imagine if you walked into a supermarket every day and you had to rethink every type of product you buy, like the laundry, detergent, your toothpaste, your soap, you name it, eggs, milk. That would take a long time. Okay, so when we're talking about how we are supposed to behave, there's a rational decision making, which explains how managers should make decisions. It's rational because we think of it as being the ideal way in which we should make decisions. Okay, and what we say is that managers should be as objective as possible and have all of the information they have on hand to make a decision. And it follows like 4 stages. 1, identifying the problem opportunity. 2 is generating alternatives. 3, we evaluate these alternatives. And finally, we implement and evaluate the solution chosen. Okay? So if we just take an example and run it through, if you, let's say, face a problem of declining sales, right? Okay, so what is our alternative? That would be stage 1, which is identifying what the problem is. So the actual is I don't want my sales to decline, and my desirables, the actual stage is the sales are declining. The desirable state is that I want, my sales to be increasing, or at least, being stable. Okay, so stage 2, how do I deal with the situation? Maybe I can increase sales, or increase advertising. Maybe I can reduce price, or I can design a new product. So we have to invest in generating as many possible alternatives here as possible and figuring out which one would probably turn this around. So we go to stage 3 and evaluate the alternatives. Okay, and then you might do surveys, you might talk with customers informally and figure out what the problem is. And you say which one will probably reverse this course of action, or this these symptoms of the declining sales. From talking maybe to the customers, you find out, well, they like the product, they know about it, but hey, it's priced a little bit high. So, okay, so let me try to reduce my prices over here. So we go to stage number 4 is that we implement the solution, and if it, reverses the sales, then good job. If it doesn't, then we go back to the drawing board and go to stage number 1 and try to see, okay, why did we fail? Maybe there are different alternatives that we didn't consider, and so on. So this is a very rational way of thinking. We try to rule out, any types of biases here by going through a systematic process of decision making. Okay, so the problem is we are rarely rational. We don't always think about these different types of alternatives and take our time. Why? Because of cost. To generate all of the possible alternatives in the previous example, it will take us time. Okay, interviewing customers, knowing which are their preferences. The surveys cost a lot of money, and therefore we might not be able to analyze the situation in the way we want. Maybe that the market is reacting quickly. It's the holiday season, and therefore we have to make a very informed decision that's based on our intuition. So not an informed decision, something that's based on intuition. But as much as possible, we try to follow this approach because the quality of decisions is enhanced because we've considered all the possible alternatives. We can easily justify the decision to others because there's a lot of transparency on the process and how we followed it. And there's greater responsibility here. People, acknowledge that, okay, here is how we followed it, and I'm being a responsible person when deciding. This is what we do when we hire candidates for we just hired someone for the management position, and it took us almost 2-3 weeks just to narrow them down to 6 possible candidates. Yes, because we went through a variety of different criteria, like what is their aptitude when it comes to reading and writing, what is how good is the research, how good is their teaching. So we had like 5-6 criteria. How good are they engaging the local community, how do they engage diversity, and so forth. Then we kind of gave them a score out of 4. We met all committee members, we ranked them based on those, and therefore we started interviewing them on Skype. So that it was a very transparent process. Anyone cannot question, that we were biased in our selection. Of course, there are biases, and these biases came up in the interview, but it limits it as much as possible.